different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it.
Technology, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. All right, welcome everybody to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovese, and we're coming at you every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And let me tell you something, if you're not tuning in on a regular basis, you are missing some amazing conversations. We're here a short time, only for a half hour, but we're packing it in with amazing guests who are going to bring you information, experience, background, stories about how you can level up, how you can advance in whatever you're doing, giving you the tools and equipping you to achieve the goals you want in life. You know, we're all about creating connection here. And I've learned through my journey, you know, early on when I started my first company, I wanted to do it alone. I wanted to leverage technology and processes because I wanted to move fast and I wanted to make all my own decisions. There's a little bit of ego in there, but what I learned is when I collaborated with people, it was much more fulfilling. I actually was able to go farther because there was an added element of somebody else's perspective and somebody else's energy and drive to help fuel the endeavor forward. So we want to bring you people that maybe you can connect with here on this show. You know, my co-host Steve Spiro and I, we go back about 27, 28 years. Two introverts, two former shy guys who really didn't talk to people. Steve he holds a couple of black belts and a couple of different martial arts disciplines. He'd probably sooner hit you than talk to you. And me, I was just deathly afraid of even talking to people. It's a big hurdle for me. We came together through a common mentor, and we learned how that we had to level up our skills. You know, I was basically clueless, knowing nothing about relationships or connection or business or anything. So it was a long journey. And then our paths divided and came back together probably about 5 years ago or so. And today we're doing this show together. And like I said, we're still introverts, but we're not shy guys anymore. So I'm going to bring him on now. My co-host, the Master Connector himself, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Rob G? How you doing, sir?
Doing good.
Great to, man. I'll tell you what. As you talk about our journey together, and then dividing. I was always better when you were in my life. That's for sure. So I'm just so excited to be collaborating on the show with you. So just appreciate you, sir, big time. And what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And I know we're a couple days out, but happy Father. Hope the fathers, you guys had a great Father's Day this past weekend. Love the fact that summer's here. It's beautiful. We'll live right on the water here, so enjoying the beautiful sun and the beach here. But yeah, so hey, being and by the way, before we get into this, I just want to say welcome, Maria. Great to see you on the show here today. Welcome, Lewis, again. Lewis is 2 weeks in a row. Great to have you on the show. Pumped and excited. Listen, like these guys, get in the comments. Tell them, tell us where you're tuning in from. What city, what state, what country, right? You take this opportunity to connect with each other, right? This is the Master Connector Show. It's all about connection. So get in and make sure you're sending connect requests and have a follow-up conversation. I learned from my friend Tina Campbell, right? The magic is in the follow-up. You follow up, right? That's the key here to anything, right? The platform's great, but if you don't take it outside this platform, what good is it? That's my feeling. So, but yeah, so listen, and I'm on LinkedIn personally because yes, it's a good way to connect, but I love the fact that I could be a difference maker. And being a true difference maker involves more than just ambition. It requires a deep commitment to positive change and the courage to act on it. True difference makers possess empathy and understanding the importance of human connection, recognizing that genuine relationships are the foundation of an impactful leadership. And what's interesting, right? So I love impacting. When I'm up on stage, I just enjoy having the ability to touch lives and make a difference. And my feeling is if you touch one life, it's all worth it, right? My feeling is true success is not how many things, how many material, items you have, or money, or your cars or homes. That's all great. But what to me is true difference, and what's true success is how many people are better off because I was here, because you were here, right? So hopefully you feel the same way. But so back to this, they leverage leadership and people that are difference makers. They leverage their emotions constructively and using passion and compassion to inspire others and drive meaningful initiatives. By focusing on both small, everyday actions and larger goals, they create a ripple effect that influences their community and beyond. Ultimately, a true difference maker is someone who's consistently striving to leave the world better, like we spoke about. Then they found that in demonstrating that every effort counts. You count. Everything you do counts. I want you to really think about that as we dive in this show. So if you're ready to have my man, Mr. Rob G, introduce our guest, I want you to type in the comments right now, #let's go. And Robbie, I'll turn it to you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Listen, like I said, we're always bringing amazing guests to you, and today is no different. We're going to have on our show Josiah Pladl. He's the founder of 45 Degrees Leadership Development Consulting, where he brings 2 decades of visionary leadership success. With executive expertise and a focus on actionable lessons, Josiah seamlessly connects head to heart, enhancing leadership in today's complex landscape. Josiah began leading in the complex world of public education as a principal. And there's a wide variety of stakeholders in education, if you don't know this, and he was able to increase engagement everywhere. He led the largest increase of parent engagement and the second largest increase in employee engagement across 18 sites. He improved attendance for the first time in 4 years at a large, diverse high school. In fact, it was the largest increase the school had seen in over 8 years. In year 2, it was the first time there were back-to-back years of positive increases. And in year 2, the increase was larger than the record-setting year before. At the heart of all this, there's one reason for his success: Josiah's ability to connect, his ability to communicate in a way that inspires and engages all, and his success is in his ability to leverage emotion to drive results. Please welcome to the show, Josiah Pladl. Hey, Josiah, what's up?
Hey, Rob, Steve, how are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
I'm great, thanks.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, I tell you what, Rob, I know you say I bring good guests in. I'm like, when you read their bio or you speak about them, I'm like, these are some great people we have coming on, man. Like, wow, Josiah, man, we're honored to have you on the show here with us. Pleasure being on here, having you on here. So, yeah, we're gonna just dive into it, but I just want to make a couple things before, a little housekeeping stuff. I want to welcome Carrie Stuckman. I don't know if she's part of your network, Josiah, but I haven't seen Carrie before, so glad you're here. Yolanda Chin's in the house. Yolanda is amazing. She's a loyal follower of our show and community member. John McPhillips, great to connect with you the other day, sir. And Parker, tuning in from Kentucky today. Nice. I'm wondering if he's relocated. I wonder. I know he was Ohio before, so I'm not sure if he's there for other reasons. But John gave a little bit of his information, so make sure you connect with John and make sure you connect with everyone. So, but yeah, we're excited to dig into this. All right, so Josiah, here we go. You ready? Community, type in #define. So we're going to talk about, we'd love to hear your perspective, and of course, throw in whatever else you think is going to help as well. But what qualities do you believe define a true difference maker in today's world?
Well, that's a really, really good question, Steve. And for me, it's personal. It comes down to an individual level, because I absolutely believe in the power of people. I believe in people over everything. And I believe that everybody can make a positive impact or positive difference in the world. And that's in relationship to wherever you're at in life and whatever you are comfortable with. So for some people, with the challenges that are out there, with their past experiences, whatever those may be, just showing up is a difference, right? Like just being able to get out of bed, get out of the house, and be present and engage with others is what they can bring. And that's totally fine. And then you go all the way to the top of the food chain, right? When you're looking at global leaders, CEOs of multinational companies, where they're responsible for thousands of people's livelihoods, right? And everybody goes to work with their trust in that person, that they're going to be able to provide for their family, that they're going to find meaning in what they do for a living. And so there's those two ends, and there's everything in between. So just show up, be kind, show empathy, and do what it is that you're comfortable with in a positive way. And to me, you are a difference maker, Steve.
Love that. It's great.
Yeah.
Yes. Rob, you have something to say? It looks like you're about
I
to
was
speak.
I was just thinking about what Josiah was saying, and the question, define a difference maker. And what Josiah is saying was, it's basic things like showing up, right?
Mhm.
And I laugh because so many people just don't show up, and I'm not even talking about physically, but sometimes they don't show up with their true self, with contribution, showing up and giving it, contributing.
Yep.
And that is a big difference between people that make things happen and people don't.
Yeah. I heard, 98% of success is just showing up, right? And there's different percentages I've heard, but the bottom line is showing up. And I love what you said, Rob, as far as making sure you're showing up, not just physically, but also, in your presence. And, I feel, one of the books I read recently, I read so many, it talked about when you're in with other people, make sure that you're contributing, right? Like if the question's asked, or they're saying you have any questions, be the one to speak up. Don't just be in the background observing, which is harder for me because I'm, more of an observer introvert by nature. So I have to really push myself to really do that. But I appreciate that. Well, we're going to get into the next question. So type in community hashtag difference, right? Because we're talking about being a difference maker. So type in hashtag difference, but a little different spin on the word difference, right? So how can someone, Josiah, start making a difference on a small scale and gradually build up to larger impact?
That's a great question. And it kind of goes along with what I talked about, how everybody has the ability to make a difference. And so the first thing that I would say is you are powerful. Your value is absolutely in you. Your experiences, insights, knowledge, the way you communicate. There's only one person in the entire world that can bring all of that to the table, and that's you. And so identify your ability, your strengths, what it is that you want to jump in on, and how you want to contribute to your community, state, society, whatever, world, and on the large scale, and figure out what way that you can share your voice to add value to others. And when you get comfortable sharing your voice, that goes everywhere with you, right? And I focus on what Rob talked about in my intro is actionable steps to execute emotional intelligence. And so when you start looking to execute on EQ, you are going to start it with awareness and who you are, which then allows you to build awareness of those around you. And when you start to understand who people are and what they're struggling with, what they need to bring value, to make a difference, you align that with your natural abilities and start to give that. And it starts off personal first and then goes to professional. And so you will start to level up in your career, in your professional life, once you understand the ability of how you can bring value, how you can share your voice. And that opens the door to really whatever it is you want to pursue as far as being a difference maker. So start at the lowest level with you, and then allow that to grow and strengthen and kind of level up to build understanding of others. And then figure out where your sweet spot is, where your comfort zone is, and start going. Because I can tell you this, Rob, Steve, you guys have probably experienced this. Once you make a little difference, it is addictive, right? Like then you want to go bigger and you want to take bolder action. And what it is that action breeds momentum, which breeds confidence, which then leads to bolder action, which just levels up all of those things. And so figure out what it is you want to do, what you're comfortable with, and leverage that, and let's go change the world together.
I love it. I want to just say this is that, so great stuff, Josiah. What happened for me is, as I was starting to reach out on LinkedIn and making an impact and touching people's lives, it was a bit of an endorphin hit, because I started to see spark in people's eyes, and I saw people getting emotional, and it became addictive. And then I started doing videos, and I got the reactions, and then I said, all right. And then I got asked to speak, and I'm like, that became really even more addictive, because like you said, so it starts out small and then just builds from there. So I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm going to jump in there for a second, Steve, because it made me think of something about what some of the audience might be feeling. And it's what I felt a bunch of years ago. Now, I'm a brand builder now. I build brands for companies, people, and whatnot. But my background, my education is in graphic design. I started out as a graphic designer. And I remember thinking years ago, now my wife is a nurse, right? So she has literally saved lives. And I thought, wow, she's really making a difference in the world. I'm like, how could I ever do anything in the world that mattered when she's out saving lives? Like I'm there's no way I'm going to save somebody's life with graphic design, right? So I would actually pray. I'm like, I need some kind of opportunity to make a difference. And a week later, somebody called me from a local charity and said, we have a charity where we raise money to help the families financially with terminally sick children. And we don't have a website. We were wondering if you could help us. And not that I saved anybody's lives by any stretch, but I designed and built a website. I did a lot of marketing. I did flyers for them. So I was able to help them in a way that indirectly, in some small way, made a difference in that charity so they could raise more money. And so if you're out there and you're thinking, well, I'm only this, how could I make a difference? You've got to understand that, like Josiah said, everybody plays a part. You just have to figure out what that part is.
Absolutely. I love it. So the next piece of this is examples, hashtag examples, right? Put that in the community. You put that in the comments community. So maybe, Josiah, as we're talking about making a difference, can you share some examples of leaders who have successfully used human connection to drive impactful change? I think that would be a good way to go from here in this conversation. And by the way, before you do that, I just want to give a shout out to Greg Willis. Looks like he's joining us in from YouTube. So great to see you, Greg. And been a long time. We need to reconnect again soon, sir. But anyway, tell us about some examples there. No, Josiah, please.
Yeah, so I'll go with what Rob was talking about the contribution that you can make even if you're not aware of it. And so one of my favorite stories comes down to, I posted on LinkedIn yesterday about creating vision and then building clarity and alignment to inspire and engage people to drive results. And my favorite story of that all time comes with John F. Kennedy. And when he was president and we were in the race to put somebody on the moon, he went to tour the NASA facilities that were doing this and executing on this. And as he was walking around the facility, he saw a man and he walked up and shook his hand and said, "Hi, I'm President Kennedy. Nice to meet you. And what's your role here?" And the man looked him right in the eyes and said, "I'm here to put a man on the moon." And JFK walked away and he asked somebody, who was that gentleman I just talked to? And they said, well, he's the custodian. And so when you look at the power of vision and connection and what it is that we're all working towards, there's no better example of what Rob touched on before. And what the question is here, Steve, is that express that vision, build clarity and alignment. People want to follow. People want to add contribution to the world, and they're going to buy in. And if you position that in a way that connects and leverages emotion and provides empathy and care for everybody, whether the custodian or the head, engineer that's building this spacecraft to go to the moon, if everybody's aligned and believes that they're there to put somebody on the moon, you know what happened? We got to the moon, right, Steve? Because that's the power of belief. That's the power of human connection. That's the power of leading with empathy, of inspiring and engaging. And that's one of my all-time favorite stories of what that looks like, not only in execution, but then in results.
I love that. Well, you kind of queued up this next question because we got to go into empathy, right? So community, type in hashtag empathy. So tell us, maybe enhance that a little bit, kind of give us a little bit, how can it be enhanced and the ability to use empathy to make a difference? Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, for sure. So this is one of my most important areas for me, and I equip, like I talked about, actionable frameworks, and every human interaction is around communication. And so the old saying from Stephen Covey that listening to understand is better than listening to respond. And I'm here to tell you, I respect Stephen Covey, but that doesn't cut it anymore, right? Like the new standard is to listen to empathize. And in my communication framework, I equip people on how to execute that. And it's really, really simple to understand. It's a little bit harder and takes practice to do, but as somebody is talking, you want to first listen to their experiences, both the recent ones and the ones from the past that are going to impact how they show up in that interaction. And then as you are asking questions and executing like high level active listening, just listen for what are their needs, what are their goals, and what are their challenges. And as you're starting to identify those things, you ask yourself a simple question. Am I making those easier or more difficult? Right? And that is how you listen with empathy. And you can read anything you want on communication. It is what connects us, is our ability to communicate. And empathy is the foundation of active listening, which everybody will tell you is the most important skill of communication, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, the old saying. And so when you equip people with actionable ways to execute empathy, which is what I specialize in, you start to level up and index the power of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes when you start to listen in that manner. Because what are we all driven by? Needs, challenges, and objectives and experiences, right? That's who you are. That's who I am. That's our soul. That's our being, right? And so when you execute that listening, you then connect in a way that leads, inspires, and drives results.
I'm going to say, if there's one takeaway from what you just said, if our listeners, if our audience took away one thing from my perspective, I would say what you said about active listening. Because I used to be like, yeah, I heard what you said, right? In other words, I could parrot it back because I heard it, but I wasn't listening, right? Because I was only thinking about what I wanted to say once that person finally shut up. But so how do you connect with somebody, right? When you hear what they say and respond with empathy, I think I'm summing up a little bit of what you're saying, Josiah. That connection is there because people want to feel heard, right?
Absolutely. So, it's interesting. It kind of piggybacks on something that I've been taught, right? As an introvert, it's hard to carry on conversations, or because it's like, okay, what do I got to say? But here's what I was taught: be interested, not having to be interesting. Being interested in them and learning about their story. People love when you open up the door, they love to talk. And I had a call at one of my Connect calls today, and I did my usual. And most people take 10 or 15 minutes to tell their story, sometimes 5 minutes. This woman took like 26 of the 30 minutes we had, and she's like, I'd love to hear about you. I said, well, in the 4 minutes we have left, let me tell you my story. But it's okay. But listen, that's better. I mean, it's better to be a listener and hear, what they're having to say. But because ultimately it's all about connecting. And so that brings us to the next kind of phase here. We want to talk about emotion, right? So community, type in hashtag emotion, because as you start to hear their story, you start to empathize. Now emotions kick in, right? You're connecting. I like to say it's the little kids are playing in the sandbox. You're getting to know each other on an emotional kind of level, not just a business level, right? That's why you always say ditch to pitch. So Josiah, in your experience, how can individuals harness their emotions to inspire and influence positive outcomes?
That's a great question. And wow, is that powerful, right? Human beings are emotional beings, and we act based on emotion. Like when you purchase something, you're purchasing that on raw emotion, and then you justify it to yourself with logic, right? Like that's the way that we're wired, and that's how we operate. So if you understand that and you are able to connect with people and understand what I talked about before, if you talk about somebody's needs, challenges, objectives, and experiences, that's emotional to them, right? And the other thing I'll add, Steve, about being interested, not interesting, is we all look to connect by sharing our own experiences, right? Like, hey, I remember a time I had that exact. And what does that do with the conversation? It flips it from being about them to about you. And so as tempting as that is, and yes, it does build connection at times, let it be about them and maintain being interested, Steve. I love that. And so you're going to start then, if you do that, to identify by their body language, by their tone of voice, by their nonverbal facial expressions, like where is the emotion, right? And I mean, for me, if I talk about my kids, you're going to know it's emotional with me, right? Caleb and Kenny are the joy of my life, and I physically light up when I talk about them. And so being in tune of others' nonverbal communication, because sometimes, Steve, it's really hard to hear what somebody's saying because you can't hear it because their nonverbal is screaming at you so loud, right? And so pay attention to the nonverbals to see where the emotion is, and then provide support resources and opportunity associated with those emotional, charging areas with that person. And when you start to execute that, you're going to connect in a way where, people are going to want to be around you. They're going to want to engage. You move from having to convince to beginning to be able to collaborate. And that's where the power of connection happens.
Love it. Love it. Well, we're right. We're really right at, but I want to squeeze this one in. Maybe Josiah, you can give us a little bullet point on the topic connections, right? There's the Master Connector Show, and you were kind of talking about it. So let's finalize. So if you could just give us a little bit on connections. So community #connections. Again, I really appreciate your support, community. You've been great in the comments. I really do appreciate that. But what strategies can leaders use to foster deeper connections within their teams and communities? And I know that could be a long answer, but if you could just summarize it quick, and then maybe tell the community the best way to connect with you as we wind down the show here.
Yeah. So I'll tie it all together, going back to what we started, what Rob was talking about showing up. All right. So these are the first two pieces of my communication framework. The one is conscious, and showing up. What Rob talked about is not just physical. Are you there present? Are you socially, mentally, and emotionally present? Right. And you have to be all three of those in order to connect. And then the other piece is listen with empathy. And I've already went into that, but let it be about them. Move away from why questions and ask how and what questions, because you get a lot deeper responses, not the 5-year-old, 3-year-old type answer, why. Focus on the how and what. Let them go. Let them be themselves. Let them celebrate themselves and engage. And if you can do those things, be present and listen and execute empathy, like I talked about before, you'll connect with anybody.
Awesome. What's the best way for our community to connect with you?
LinkedIn is the way. I post every day, 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. I try to bring value every day to your feed on how you can connect. The power of human connection is undefeated. I equip you to connect your head to your heart. And I want to see you follow me. I want to see you engage. And I want to see you add your wisdom and insight. Please show up.
Absolutely. Look at that challenge. Josiah just challenged you. He dropped a bomb and challenged you. So community, take him up on the challenge. Otherwise, I'm coming for you. All right. So go do it. Well, we appreciate you big time. Josiah, you brought the heat. You brought it with you. Really appreciate you. We're going to put you in the green room, but community, make sure you connect with Josiah. See you soon. We'll see you afterwards.
Whew.
Wow. Rob G, huh?
Powerful stuff. Look, I got to say, I mean, I know you're bringing in a lot of the guests, Steve, but you never seem to fail to provide amazing guests with great insight. So look, if you're out there, this is about hearing people's stories and hearing a little bit of Josiah's story. I have a story. Steve has a story. Pick up Steve's book, The Tao of a Master Connector. We're going to get that in the comments for you because you want to hear some of the stories behind the overcoming, because that only thing that stops any of us from reaching the goals and aspirations we have is what we have to overcome to get there. So I'm going to put that in the comments, Steve, but awesome stuff.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And hey, listen, community, just appreciate your big time. And next week, we're bringing the heat again with Frank Agan, the science of networking. So, a lot of times our topics are really big picture, cool. This is going to be a little more tactical, the science of networking. Don't miss it. June 26th, same bad time, same bad channel. It's episode 169. Crazy how we are just blowing through these episodes. So just appreciate you. And if you're interested in sponsoring an episode, go to the masterconnector.show. You could also go to masterconnector.show to learn and see all the up and coming episodes. I know Rob has done a great job of uploading, not just July, but August is up, and we've got September and October. We're booked out all the way to the end of January. It's crazy, but we got some power pack people coming. But I want to just end with a story. Listen, Dr. Paul Farmer, a physician and anthropologist, co-founded Partners in Health to provide quality healthcare to impoverished communities worldwide. His relentless dedication to serving the undeserved led to transformative improvements in global health, particularly in Haiti and Rwanda. Farmer's compassionate approach and innovative solutions have inspired many to join the fight for health equity and social justice. Remember, folks, whatever you do, like Josiah said today, The little things. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on a mission to stop world health crises or feed the hungry around the world. You still have an impact. You could still touch or impact one life and be that light. See you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives